Tonight on Debate Amongst Friends, NFL owners are considering a compromise to their sports national anthem policy. NBA news and updates, including the latest coaching changes, and the conference finals are almost here as the West is set and the process is, well, still processing. And so much more now, starting now.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Debate Amongst Friends, live on YouTube and available on so many other podcast applications. But today is May 9th, 2018, and I'm your mediator for tonight, the Professor John Gotti. And always by my side. You don't want to hear him before the show. You want to hear him after the show. Well, actually, you do, but you want to hear him all show long. It's the Doc. How you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm feeling pretty good. Weather's nice. Being around great company. Get a chance to go one-on-one with the man himself, Doc Ocean, and I'm ready to, have ourselves a debate. We got some sports to talk about.
We do. Let's jump right on into it, sir.
Absolutely. So, if you haven't heard, the NFL has finally made a move towards the whole anthem protest situation. Their proposal, and this is actually currently being re-argued again by the Players Association, is to make standing for the anthem a team-by-team choice. This means a particular team, let's say the Dallas Cowboys, for example, can make one rule for the anthem, while another team like the Doc's Tampa Bay Buccaneers can have an entirely different rule for the anthem protest. Doc, what was your reaction when you heard about this?
I think initially it was kind of shocking. I feel like this could kind of cause a rift or some type of kind of separation between the two or really multiple teams, especially um, if there are people who, of course, believe in what they're kneeling for. Of course, if the players will even continue to kneel, because the whole point of kneeling is kind of to go against the grain.
Hmm.
So if the owners are with the grain, then I'm not sure if that's something that they'll want to continue to do.
Well, I could understand that. And for me, I'm thinking more of like on the business aspect of things as well too. So on one hand, yes, it can cause some sort of rift, between players and coaches and players and their teams, and lead to decisions going into like free agencies and whether or not certain players want to try to go into retirement early. But then there's also the potential backlash when it comes to the fan bases.
I agree, and it's kind of interesting to when I think about it because it's like you're putting the I guess the decision on the players, sure, and ultimately on those owners. But it's like if you start to call out the owners, the NFL could almost wind up start losing money in those particular states. If an owner says, "Hey, we're gonna let the inmates run the prison," quote, to just give one quote,
Wow,
and
I
then
can't believe you
players.
used that quote too, knowing
I
that's not
mean,
PC.
I'm just saying that's what he said. I mean, what
He
can
did
we
say
say?
that. He did say that.
If he's gonna let the inmates run the prison, either way he meant it, then he's gonna lose whoever associates themselves as an inmate, I guess, in his statement. So the fans of those quote unquote inmates are gonna stop coming to the game. But
Yes.
the NFL is so big. I mean, I guess when I think about it, maybe they won't lose a lot of money.
Mm.
But a lot of people who said they weren't going to watch the NFL
For the most
didn't
part,
watch
didn't.
the NFL.
Yes.
Yeah, I can agree. Obviously, we continue to watch it as analysts. I'm still a fan of the team that I root for, of course, the Bucks. Um, I don't see it as I didn't see the protests, of course, going on as it was intended initially. I thought after a while it was more for publicity. Um, but this is progress. I mean, compared to the last offering of just paying money towards their causes, I think was the last compromise.
Well, I thought you was all for that compromise before.
Well, I wasn't for it. I was just making sure that, everyone was aware. I think we were having a debate on it. I think that it was something that money, of course, is always good, but I don't think I was 100% on board with it. I think that ultimately it was good for individuals who, number one, may have been scared to kneel, uh, who chose not to kneel because of their particular causes. But when I look at somebody like Larry Fitzgerald, I know that he does a lot of work in the community, and the money that the NFL owners were offering to put up, I think would help a lot of communities. So that's ultimately the point I was trying to make with the whole that compromise. But this particular one, if an owner, which seems like there are some, I guess, minority owners who think that the kneeling is okay, I mean, I guess they could be potentially I guess I could say they could be potentially blacklisted if anything ever happens to them either. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's interesting. And maybe moving forward, we can see the first actual African American owner start to come into play.
And not just a minority owner. We're talking full-fledged owner of the team. Like he has
Right.
the final decision for any and all things that's gonna happen on, player personnel to um, enhancements to stadiums, marketings, and things of that nature.
Exactly.
Which eventually, one day, and we're now in a newer age where opportunities are starting to be more readily available. It can happen. Will it happen anytime soon? Probably not. It's still a good boys club league,
Right.
but we've made more strides as a community in the for professional sports to present more opportunities for African American head coaches, African American GMs, and whatnot.
I
Um,
agree. And I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, a matter of time and money.
well, I mean, it has to be based off of money. You have to
Yeah.
make that investment, and it has to have a great return on investment. And and we talked about this with the whole Philadelphia situation and Stephen A. Smith, that pissant, keeps
Mhm.
talking about like how you'll never see a black GM get free reigns to lose.
Mm.
So we'll have to see what will happen as we start getting beyond just a black minority owner. Like what kind of restrictions would the league place on him?
And I would hope that, of course, whenever I'm trying, of course, to be as politically correct as possible.
Of course.
But whenever you have that particular opportunity, if you're an owner, and of course, when I think of owner, I think of someone who's the top dog, the big dog
I knew you was gonna go there.
of the organization. If an African American man buys the Panthers right now, I would hope that he would got the same, treatment as Jerry Jones.
I will agree.
I
But
mean,
will he? I
he
mean,
should.
that's
He
based
paid the
off
money
of.
for it.
I mean, does it? I mean, and I get it, and I agree with you, but I gotta play devil's advocate though.
Please.
Like, but will it?
I mean, theoretically, it should.
But we're not talking
It better.
like
Think
even
about
okay.
it.
So think about
I don't
both
know.
sides though. Theoretically, it should. You're right. It should. But what about that other side? What causes it to not succeed? And we're not talking, 10 years after it happened. We're talking that first three
Immediately.
years.
I mean, ultimately, I think if I was to go and buy the Panthers right now, obviously I would have advisors and whatnot and so on and so forth. I think that based on what I know,
Hmm.
I should be treated the same as anyone else. And I think that's the one part that, we, of course, as the African American community, have to support somebody like them. Not so much because they're black, but if you're a Panthers fan, you're not going to be like, oh, our team is not good because we have a black owner. You know what I mean? Like the Ravens organization was like, oh, we're not good because we had a black GM. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I would hope that that's not the case. Or as a society, we haven't really gone anywhere in the world yet. And I mean, if anybody believes any different, then that's them. You're a part of the problem.
Now, do we worry about an all-in type of system? First of all, all-in September. It's a indie show that's gonna happen, featured by the Bullet Club. I want to give that quick plug right there. But will we have to worry about community, that community itself being all in on that owner with setting up such high expectations,
I mean, I think all fan base sets high expectations, but I wouldn't
especially
expect it
Cowboys.
to.
But that's
Yeah,
what I'll say.
exactly. And Jerry Jones is still there. I mean, they haven't won a champ. They haven't been to the Super Bowl in 20 years.
Yeah,
But Jerry's still there. They still pump out the same expectations. They still pump out the same hype.
I think it's
And
been more
every,
than 20 years now.
I think they went to the playoffs. What,
Well, you
96,
said Super
95?
Bowl.
Yeah, I think that was the Super Bowl. It was like 96, I believe, 95 or something like that. It was somewhere in there. I think I was a fan at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting to say, but I don't think that an owner ultimately would have that particular backlash as a GM or a coach. So it's like, oh, you bought this team, now we're terrible, So I'm not
Yeah, but
sure.
then we'll have kind of sort of the Tebow situation where like that team now is gonna be uh, talked about by all media and that's what I'm talking about. Like now the expectation is gonna be so high. Like people want to see whether or not this team is gonna succeed, it's gonna fail. Like every little move that this owner is going to make is going to be micro analyzed,
And
and
you're
it's
saying just
yeah.
because he's black.
Well, I'm just saying if something like that was to happen, and we're gonna talk about this with the coaching carousel, but like if something revolutionary happens, like of course it's gonna get analyzed with a fine tooth comb. Like everything's going to be looked at. Everything's going to be it's going to be viewed in a with a critical eye.
But isn't that a part of the problem?
Well, that's what I'm asking you.
Well, no, I'm saying that's the ridiculous part that we would even have to have this conversation. That a guy who has a passion for sports, just like the other 30 plus owners,
Mm-hmm.
come in and they say, hey, I want to own an NFL team. I have the money. I'm going to buy the Panthers right now. And if we say anything other than yes or go through the regular criteria, then you already know that that's why the players are kneeling. I mean, ultimately, that's it. That's just another part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's beyond the Rooney Rule. Just the fact that we had to have a Rooney Rule is kind of ridiculous after you really think about it.
I agree.
Um, it's just a point where we really should just kind of move on with our lives and just let people who are qualified or who have the capital or whatever to do the job. Like if Steph Curry right now wanted to get a group together and own the team and they were all black, I mean, just all black. group that wanted to own the team. I mean, it's just the way it should be. I don't even know why they would treat them any differently.
Makes sense.
It's kind of ridiculous. I would hope that if that did happen, I would hope to hear about that on Duke It Out.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure if something like that was to happen, I mean, we gotta have Doc and Prof join the Duke on that show to talk about it. Full circle.
absolutely,
Like
absolutely,
what a great collaboration opportunity right there.
absolutely. That'd be fantastic. But I mean that's pretty much what I had to say about the compromise for the NFL owners. I mean, of course, this is still preliminary. I'm sure there are still some things that they have to work out.
Mhm.
Um,
Because that's on top of the two collusion grievances filed by both Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed, which is still in mediations.
but the grievance is really more about them not being signed and the coincidence of the fact that the two of them kneeled.
Yes.
Of course. So it's like if you're telling me, hey, I'm not going to be on a team because I expressed my rights as a U.S. citizen, and there's no policy, that says, hey, I must stand or whatever happens to me. Um, it's a grievance. It's worth it. And then to hear that people are coming out saying that they didn't sign Kaepernick to appease Trump. I mean, what if someone else would have won the election? What would they have
It's
done then? They would have said something else.
exactly, and it's always something else that is up someone's bum about the current state of the world. But that's more of a duke it out statement than a meet
Absolutely.
amongst friends one.
Of course, of course. But it's just that fine line of social justice and sports that just cross, and that's where the Duke comes in.
Absolutely. But let's jump off of that carousel. Let's jump on another one. Let's talk some coaches.
Well, I know that you yourself should be pretty pumped. You got one of the hotter names in the carousel.
We
At
have
least it wasn't one of those other pissants.
well, and I'm glad, and it was kind of 60-40 as far as the initial reactions for things.
Of
Um,
course.
I mean, if we would have picked up Mike Woodson, I would have been pretty pissed off. If we would have picked up Mike Brown, I probably would have just
Right.
not watched the Knicks until he got fired.
Well, I mean, obviously they picked up Fizdale because he was starting to get noticed or interviewed by other teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the Knicks had to move fast, or they could have potentially lost him. I think they were the first out, literally interviewing coaches.
Yep.
So it was good that they got their guy 4-year deal. I
Which
mean,
I
did
think
you?
it's plenty amount of time, depending on, and they talked about how KP is still coming back from his injury, but depending on like what he does with the talent that he has around us, not to mention, we still have the draft coming up and the draft lottery and whatnot. Um, we have to see what he does, and I we both talked about how well he did during his, well, probably not the last season when he was with Memphis, but the season before that he was doing really well, and he's a players coach as well too, which is big to get that trust. And a certain Diesel and a certain Chuckster had a debate about getting players' trust and whether or not it's acceptable within the NBA to bench your best player. But I feel like with
So
Fizdale, he can definitely get a lot of people on his side just coming into the door. And a lot of the tweets and the Instagram posts from current players of the Knicks right now definitely, show the support of bringing someone in that is a player's coach that can, motivate people and, at least for me, bring a certain flair of defense back to the Knicks organization.
I had a conversation, of course, about the Houston Rockets a couple of days ago, and I think it kind of transposes to what the Knicks coaches need. They need certain toughness. Then David Fizdale would need to bring in some that kind of reintroduce the New York fan base to that toughness that it's used to. So it's like when the Rockets signed PJ Tucker, Gerald Green and Chris Paul, it injected the actual toughness,
Yes.
and I think that's what the Knicks need. They just need somebody to come in and it's not going to take any crap. And I could tell that I think when they went the Carmelo route, they kind of went more of a finesse route.
Yes. Well, and that was probably my biggest gripe is the fact that we just lost our identity.
Hmm. You're
At
going to
least
get
for
it
me,
back
like,
though.
and I'm all about identity. Like, I
You're
want to
definitely
make
going to get
sure
it
that
back.
what we have, or the way that we play, or the way that we approach, not just one game, but every single game, is consistent. And that's where we lost ourselves. We didn't have that identity. Like when they say, well, what about the New York Knicks? What about them? You can't say anything. You talk about the Rockets right now. It's a run and gun team utilizing two great guards currently. You know,
Hmm.
uh, great shooters that surrounds them, and a legit big man in Clint Capella, who's currently right now top five center in the league right now.
Agreed. And I mean, I just think that, with the Knicks, with them bringing in, again, a tough coach, I think we're going to see more pick and roll. We're gonna see, um, more defense. And I
Yes.
think bringing back that intensity is going to be fantastic. But looking at the other coaches, I know we talked about the Suns last week, as Igor Kokoskov had got the job last week. But I think maybe a day or so after our show last week, JB Bickerstaff got the nod to replace David Fizdale. Of course, JB was a Rockets coach previously under Kevin McHale, so I
Hmm.
kind of expect kind of similar to what they did this year as well as last year. Uh, I'm not sure what they would do to turn it around. I think they may have to kind of hit the reset button.
And sometimes you just have
Uh,
to do that.
Absolutely, and potentially move on from Marc Gasol, who was really the one of the issues why David Fizdale left.
Yeah, he basically pulled a Darren Williams, if you want to use that analogy.
Right, and that never turns out to be good. From what you see, like that never ever turns out to be good.
Nope.
Um, I think when the team decides to move and then be in favor of a player over the coach, I think at that time the team begins to kind of dwindle. So if like the Spurs would have came out and said, "Hey, we stand with Kawhi and we're going to get rid of Pop," I mean, the Spurs would basically be over. To me, of course. And then you have the Spurs losing their assistant, which I thought was kind of weird. This is a kind of interesting spot because I know that Pop is out. I'm sure he's still grieving, um, and obviously the off season is very long. He's getting older. James Borrego has been his assistant for quite some time.
Hmm.
I would have tagged him to be the replacement for Pop.
Yeah, and we talked about this too, and I think that'd be a great move. It's someone who already knows the system, and he can just fit right into it. Like just pick off where Pop left off.
No, absolutely. But I guess they're going to go in a different direction, maybe. Maybe a certain female assistant coach gets her first nod right there in San Antonio.
Becky
Uh,
Hammon,
yeah,
WNBA legend, uh, WNBA champion as well. One of my favorite players for a while when she was playing for the New York Liberty.
and I
I
think
think she can, and she has a presence about her that demands respect. It doesn't matter if she's a female; like you're going to respect her.
absolutely, and I think men have crossed over into women's sports very well,
Mm-hmm.
and not had any issues. So I think, and vice versa. I think,
Minus a few little hiccups, but yes.
yeah, minus a few, but I think for the most part, I mean, when you look at the successful basketball programs, I think obviously we talk about the Yukon Huskies,
Of course, Gino Auriemma.
exactly. Um, but I'm looking at some of the
I mean,
vacancies.
even if Bill Laimbeer has a successful career as a coach for women's basketball too.
Exactly. And you know, with him, you what you kind of know what you're getting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you just never know how it's gonna work. I mean, you're taking an opportunity, you're taking a chance, and it kind of just gotta go with the culture.
Yeah. Yeah. But speaking of culture, and talk about another team that's looking to get a new head coach, they let go. We're talking about Detroit basketball Pistons. Letting go of Stan Van Gundy.
I think Stan isn't a good coach. First of all, I don't believe it. I don't believe that he's really great. Of course, you know, I would rather see Jeff any day of the week.
I mean,
Um,
look, before we go into it, let me ask you this question then, because I also agree with you. He's not that great, but is Stan Van Gundy a Jeff Fisher for the NBA?
you know, I wasn't gonna go there, but now that you
Oh,
mention it,
I'm gonna go there.
I'd say, I mean, wow, he might be. I mean, because you think about it, he hasn't done anything, and to be honest with you, it could be. I saw a video earlier, and it's just ironic that since him and Dwight parted ways, neither one of them has really been good. So maybe that's the only way that they can be successful is to be together, because they've been trash separately.
Hilarious.
Trash. Um, but obviously, the I think the Pistons wanted to move on at this particular time. Obviously, they brought in, Blake Griffin. They have a pretty talented team. Stan just can't get the best out of the players, and I think at this point they're going to have to find somebody that's creative. I don't think they should go Mike Budenholzer. I definitely don't believe they should do that. But I think they're going to have to find somebody who is offensively creative and from there move on. And maybe Jerry Stackhouse is the guy, but Stan Van Gundy is not the guy.
Well, I mean, let's talk about some of the potential candidates then, and one of them, of course, was Becky Hammon.
Hmm.
Uh, but a few others would be David Griffin, Jerry Stackhouse, and Mike Budenholzer.
Well, Stackhouse is the only guy that I would probably bring in. I definitely don't think Mike Budenholzer is the guy I would bring in. I don't believe in bringing in someone who hasn't been successful in another location. Mike Budenholzer, he wasn't really successful in.
He led his. I mean, you sure?
I don't think so. He led his team where?
I mean,
Win.
that's rough,
Win.
bro. That's rough,
What has he
bro.
done for us lately?
I mean, technically nothing.
That's where it is. You don't want to bring that nothingness. You don't
but
want to bring that
and,
nothingness
and
to
and
the
I and
team.
I get it, and maybe it's the league getting away from what have you done before, Now it's more of a what have you done lately, and I love it, you
But
know.
see,
But
if you would have go with that logic right there, if you would have said anything else, it would have been
Stamp it.
completely acceptable
Yep.
if the Knicks would have hired any of those other coaches,
And I
including
would no
the
longer be a Knicks fan.
right. That's why it's like
Okay.
you can't
I
go
would
with
take
that.
down that flag behind me,
I understand.
and I would put it in the back of the closet, never to be seen or heard from again.
Oh my goodness. But I mean, ultimately that would be it, though. I mean, if you were to say, "Hey, Mike Budenholzer is a great coach," I mean, I would love to hear Q Mart's take on this. But Mike Budenholzer is a great coach. He's gonna,
I
take
think
the
Q-Mar's
Detroit
going to be
Pistons
on the show next week, actually.
next week. He should be. I would hope so. We're gonna definitely reach out to his people with our people and try to
Absolutely.
get him on. But I mean, give it to somebody new. I think somebody who's going to be offensively creative.
Hmm.
Honestly, if it was me, I probably would give Kevin McHale a call. Somebody who was actually successful. He just so
He
happened
is
to.
successful, and he did get the short end of the stick,
He
leaving
did.
Houston.
He did.
Um, and I agree with you. Here's where I definitely agree with you. He can work with Andre Drummond.
And Blake Griffin.
No one can
They
work
need.
with Blake Griffin because he is
Uh,
absolutely overrated. And I'm so glad
uh,
people are finally like. Let me get on my soapbox real quickly. I've been saying this since he was coming into college that he's going to be overrated. But people kept gassing him up. He was overrated in Oklahoma. Then he became overrated his first 2 years in the league. And then he jumped over the hood of the car, not the top, and people act like it was the greatest thing in the world. And he only got worse. He was only really good because Chris Paul was his point guard.
yeah.
When he wasn't
Yeah.
there, he became trash. Now people are finally saying what I've been stating for what, just about 10 years now?
How can I agree. I do agree.
Trash.
I mean, when you're playing with a different system here, and I think that's why he tried to develop his game as a perimeter scorer, and somebody who puts the ball on the ground.
Hmm.
I think that he definitely benefited from being with Chris Paul. I mean, a lot of people do. I mean, look at what Clint Capella, as you mentioned, is doing
Yep.
with him and James Harden, able to do that. I think, when he was in New Orleans, he was leading them the same way. So Chris Paul does elevate people's talents, but now you're working with Reggie Jackson.
Hmm.
You're working with Andre Drummond, who Andre Drummond, and DeAndre Jordan practically play the same kind of basketball. They both can't shoot free throws. They both just kind of don't really have that polished offensive game.
Wait, did you just say that Andre
DeAndre
Drummond
Jordan,
and DeAndre Jordan is the same?
they're practically the same. Rebound, hey,
Wow.
grab that rebound and dunk it. We're not going to really run any great plays for you, and let's try not to get you on the free throw line.
Oh my godness. Oh my godness.
I'm being honest. That's it. But Detroit, I mean, it's a okay destination. I think they have some pieces to work with.
Yep.
It's just unfortunately anything in the East, I guess, runs through LeBronto.
I
So,
mean, we
yeah,
might as well talk about that series first
of course.
because we have ourselves yet another sweep.
And I know Drake feels so bad
I
to spend all
mean,
that money on those tickets.
Drake should feel terrible about himself. Um, he probably stayed away from Twitter for a little bit, maybe for like an hour before he jumped
Yeah,
back in. But his team, that team up in the north, the hashtag defend the north, you couldn't even defend a sandcastle.
yeah,
It was straight donkey for game four. Straight donkey. LeBron James is shooting trick shots. He's throwing up shots that you'll see us do out in Lincoln Park at A Court.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible. And then that runner, I mean, in the previous game was just as bad.
I agree with you. I do agree.
All fade. He went all fadeaways in game two,
Yep.
and in game three, I don't know. I mean, I think that DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry just fall in that same conversation that we had about Bradley Beal and
Hmm.
John Wall. The Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum conversation. I mean, these dynamic duos, they just haven't worked. You know, I could see a lot of people said that Chris Paul and James Harden wouldn't have worked and was going to work, but they made it work. And for the most part, these teams have made it work through the season. But for some reason, when it comes to playoff time, it just evaporates.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just been the Raptors' MO for such a long time. Like, yes, they can have a great regular season, but, Doc and Prof been saying this for a long time. Having a great regular season is great, but that means peanuts when you're in the playoffs.
Right, and then you can have a bad regular season, like people like to say that the Cavs do, but obviously they played, a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Of course, they play a lot of smoke and mirrors. And I've been saying this. This is the second straight year this has happened.
Last year was blatant though. This year it legit looked like a struggle at one point, and people
Uh,
were questioning the role players. They were questioning how good Tyron Lue is. I mean, it was really looking bad.
but
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 this
what's
year,
but what's the saying though? That's what happens when you coach LeBron James.
this is true. And obviously there was some the biggest news really out of this series is that Rodney Hood didn't want to go into the garbage time.
Hmm.
That's terrible.
It
That's the
is
news.
terrible. It is terrible. Like the smallest little things now have to be news because there's nothing really else to say. The
I
Raptors didn't
mean,
show up. DeMar DeRozan got benched at Game 3. He didn't really, play it like his life depended on him. Kyle Lowry played like he's playing for a contract.
he does play that way. And then I think they were stating that DeMar DeRozan didn't hit any threes in this series.
He was 1 for 9
That's terrible.
for
I
three.
think maybe he didn't take any until game three. I think that's what the stat was, or game four.
It
But
doesn't
it's
matter.
like
That's still a terrible stat.
it is 1 for 9. I
Like
mean,
people kept trying to say that he's the top 10 player in the league. Like you can't have those kind of games as a top 10 player. You can't let your team get swept as a top 10 player.
I agree. And to me, I don't know where the Hawks go from here.
The
Again,
Raptors.
excuse me, we talking about buttonholes so long. Yes, the
No,
Raptors.
we
I don't know
literally
where they.
stopped talking about him.
No, no, we were talking about them for so long. It was kind of in my mind
No,
still,
no worries.
buttonholes. The Raptors. I don't know where they're gonna go from here. I don't know where the Hawks are
Fire
gonna go
Dwayne
either. But
Casey and get
well,
a new freaking head coach.
is it the coach though? He was fired. He was fired up. I mean, he was coaching his butt off. But when your players think that it would be easier if LeBron James is on their team, I mean, what are you supposed to do
I
with
see what
that?
you did there. That was last year too when he said that.
And he played the same way. He
I
played the
mean,
exact same way.
maybe it's not just the coach. Maybe you just blow up the team.
I mean, I don't
What
even
some
know a bright
something
spot on the team.
something has to happen for this team
I think
because
they're
they're
going to get rid of
always going
Kyle
to
Lowry.
be number 2 to 3 in the East at the
They're going to be
end
four
of
soon.
the season.
Because once the process is fully developed, because it's not as developed as we thought it was.
I mean, what's the
Once
process in Boston? Like, Boston is playing in a closeout game right now, heading
oh, and,
towards
I, and
halftime,
they're dominating
and
from what I
they're
can see.
dominating. Well, I mean, they're only up
Yeah,
by 3 right now, but they're dominating
yeah,
without Kyrie Irving or Gordon
yeah,
Hayward. Like, come
yeah.
on!
It's big
Like, they're
time.
over here dominating, and you have two of the top tandem guard pairing in the NBA and to defend the LeBronto North, and you couldn't even win one game?
Yeah, and that's the sad part about it, and that's why I really think that I think it's going to be Kyle Lowry who gets the boot. I think they're going to move on from him and kind of run with Van Fleet.
Which I'm okay
Um,
with because I think Van Fleet can definitely help out that system because he's the type of point guard that's going to get everyone involved and whatnot, and he's that kind of presence in the locker room as well too. But I don't know if he's the actual answer for this team because this team has no identity.
I mean, their identity is Lowry or DeRozan. I mean, that's it. That's it. Pick and roll or ISO.
Yeah,
I mean, that's it. I mean, like I said, I don't fault Dwayne Casey. You can't say, hey, he was trash. I mean, they won
and
almost
and,
60
and, and, and,
games.
and, and I'm not saying this, Professor John got it. I'm not saying that Dwayne Casey is trash. I'm just saying that it's about time for them to move on from Dwayne Casey, in my
I don't
opinion.
think so. I do not think so. I think it's time for them to move on for some players. I mean, it starts right here.
It starts with heart. I completely agree with you.
And I think if they're not showing that heart, I mean, you can't coach that.
Nope. But
You
and
can't
isn't
teach
it?
that.
But isn't it ironic though that we just got finished talking not just a week ago about how the Raptors, the players, are talking about how they're playing on cruise control in the last series.
I mean, that was, and I don't know how they could play on cruise control and they went 7 games. That part I don't understand. There's no cruise control with 7 games. There's, your
But
foot's on
I'm just
your
saying,
foot
like,
should be on the pedal.
but it's like they're okay just being part of the dance versus wanting to raise the trophy.
Maybe they got discouraged after Cleveland won the first series and didn't know if they want
No,
and didn't know if they wanted to carry on. Figured they would just let John. I think the Wizards probably would have fared off better in this series
I
against the
completely
Cavs.
agree. I completely
Yeah,
agree.
I would have loved to have seen Otto Porter and LeBron go at it for a little bit.
In fact,
I
I
think
would I would say boldly right now that the Wizards would have probably beat the Cavaliers in that series,
it would at least I don't know if
or
they
at
would
least
beat.
bring it to 6 games.
Yes, 5 to 6 games. Yes, I know they wouldn't have lost that game that they were up by,
Twenty
until the
two.
fourth quarter. Yeah, they definitely wouldn't have lost that game. But I don't know. I
Um,
think
I
we should
just,
move
I
on.
just, I just think that that's the move that they need to make. Do I agree they needed to move players? Absolutely, but
Eh,
at the same time, I mean, it's the same story every single year with Dwayne Casey.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I mean, you can't. I don't know. I mean, I think that would be the same as them firing, McHale. Only difference is he's not having an issue with the star players, which these guys, to me, the way they just play, they're not star players.
Nope.
So, I mean, there's no question they should be
I mean,
traded. Maybe,
when they're up by big, they play like star players. But if they're
maybe
getting
it's
their
time.
butt whipped, getting embarrassed by having the best player in the world, quote unquote, you know,
After getting starstruck,
pull Antoine Jameson shots on you. Oh, I went there.
yeah, I think that they might need to maybe see if Kawhi Leonard's available.
And everyone is saying that, but we'll talk about that another week.
Of course.
We'll talk about that one another week. But let's talk about another series that ended. Well, actually, two more series ended. Let's first talk about the Pelicans and the Warriors. We said that the Pelicans will definitely give the Warriors some trouble. And in this series, to be honest, they have. There's been times where they gave them trouble, but it wasn't the trouble that we was expecting. It wasn't the
Right.
trouble, 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 trouble. Shout outs to EC3 right there. But it wasn't the type of trouble that we anticipated after they swept the Trailblazers. They only won one game, but that one game was a blowout.
This is true.
But we also said that they will not win this series if Steph Curry comes back and he starts playing again like Steph Curry. And what happened? Game 4 and 5, Steph Curry played like Steph Curry.
He did. He did.
And
I
this is
think
what it
that
is.
I think that ultimately, the Warriors are a well-oiled machine. I
Hmm.
think that that game that they dropped, I think in most series, even with the Cavs, I think with the Rockets losing to the Jazz, I think, you know, with Boston just losing this last game to the 76ers, I think sometimes, the other team really shows up to play and they're destined and they're willing to put their best foot forward to try to win the game. Now, the one thing I will say is that the Warriors GM, the coaches, the organization, you can tell what their identity is.
Yes.
Like I think their identity is 3 and D. It's not like what one player does. It's like their whole identity is 3 and D and 3D run.
Yep.
Um, and it's going to be interesting to see them move on. But I mean, we saw Rondo, really try to lead this team to an upset. I mean, he threw 20 assists in that game.
He did. He did. And people kept talking about, oh, well, playoff Rondo is underrated. But you can't, like, and that's the thing. And I'm a stats person. And, Doc, you know this. But, like, you
Hmm.
can't look at it just based off the stats. Because if you look at
Of
it based off
course.
the stats, of course he's playing average. In fact, in the last series, they compared it to, like, his last playoff series with the Celtics when it was just him by himself. Yeah, it went down a little bit. But like,
Of course.
you can't look at it just based off that. You have to look at the impact to the game that he causes. Like
Agreed.
we as lovers of basketball depend too heavily on stats, and sometimes we often forget about the eye test.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are padding their stats. We talked about that, and
Westbrook,
yeah, we did talk about that
LeBron.
and how he
Oh man, that pollen from Millville, New Jersey, traveled out to Texas.
wow. I mean, we did talk about the pad stat, the stat padding. Um, and sometimes it does lie, but I mean, the fact that they were able to accomplish it, and also you got to keep in mind that the assist is no longer the assist that we used to know. And I think Jeff Van Gundy was laughing about it when Rondo had got his 20 assists,
Hmm.
stating that, he's actually clowning with Mark Jackson, which is pretty hilarious. And, Mark Jackson was like, why you hating, man? Because he was saying that Mark Jackson used to, feed some of his players some assists that, today might not have been an assist.
Yeah.
So he was clowning with them a little bit. But I think that ultimately, when I look at the entire situation there, I think they have a good core. Obviously, if they can keep Boogie Cousins, they might be able to make a little bit of a run.
Yep.
And they actually might have challenged the Warriors a little bit more if Boogie Cousins was there because everybody was clicking at the right time. No, offense towards Miritich, but I mean, to me, he's no Boogie Cousins.
And I
With
agree, but I'm still gonna give Miritich his credit because he definitely balled out this playoffs.
with or without the beard, he's no Boogie Cousins.
I mean, and I get that, but he's definitely for what he had to do. He did a tremendous job these playoffs, so he gets 2 snaps for that.
Wow, not 2 snaps.
2 snaps.
Wow, out of what? 5?
Yes,
Oh, okay, that's fine. I could live with that.
but
All
we
right.
are at halftime right now, ladies and gentlemen, between the 76ers and the Celtics, and the Celtics are in the lead, 61-52, out there in TD Gardens in Boston.
Boom. All right. So I mean, we might as well talk about that series. Confetti, premature confetti falling from the sky. Ooh, that was rough.
Oh, talking about a premature ending.
Oh my God. It was an eruption of confetti. Um,
Oh,
eh,
I mean,
but they
talking about just feeling shameful after shooting out confetti just before it even before zeros hit the clock
Right. And then to lose.
and then lose. Like, and everyone made sure, all over
Yes.
social media, made sure that they got their
Yes.
comeuppance for that.
Oh, of
And
course.
you know what? It is what it is, though. I mean, it was in
Yes.
Philadelphia. I don't know if we could take that away from them. Obviously we have to,
Yeah.
but I mean, maybe they was too busy focusing on Meek Mills to realize that the game wasn't over.
It's true. They were. And I mean, well, no, I mean, maybe that's what lit a fire under them to win game four. And maybe that's going to carry over to win game five. Obviously, Marcus Morris kept holding up the 3-0, the 3-0 sign, 3-0, and now it's 3-1. I mean, maybe the 76ers can steal this one and live to play one more game.
Well, and they could if they manage to put a cap on your boy Jason Tatum.
I mean, he's a dookie.
He is balling his behind off right now.
He's balling like he wants to win a championship.
I
He
mean,
obviously didn't get a chance to win a championship
and
in with the Duke, with the Dukies. So he's like, I can't go like I can't live like this.
I mean,
you know,
obviously JJ Redick before the series, he was like, I'm a Dookie, you're a Dookie, like just come out there and try to play to win, man. Like that's the only advice I
yeah.
can give you. And he said, you know what, JJ, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna listen to Coach K in my head right now, and he says, ball out. I'm gonna ball out, and that's what he's did.
I mean, Isaiah Thomas came out today and said that Brad Stevens is one of the best coaches he's ever played for, and
And
apparently he's a really good coach. But we knew this,
but we
yeah,
knew this
even
though. Like I
yeah,
don't I
coming
don't know.
from
We
Butler.
acting like it's a complete surprise.
I think it's a surprise because of the failure for most coaches that to transition into NBA coaching. I think because a lot of NBA college coaches came over and didn't do so well. And you even see it in the NFL. Like you don't always get a Pete Carroll to come back, go lead the NFL after being terrible, go to college and then come
Oh
back and be
my, I'm so
successful.
sorry. Hold on, because I'm watching the
Go.
halftime report. I don't know if you're watching it as well too. And for those out there, folks, right now, Kenny the Jet Smith has just went into the big screen, and he is inside of the clips for the first half. This is like some Liberty Science Center kind of crap happening right now, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Oh, he's
terrible.
actually in it, like almost like 3 or 4D kind of thing.
Like he is in there, like it's video arcade from Nickelodeon back in the day.
Wow. At first, I thought you were gonna go a little Titus O'Neil, like he fell into the screen. But
No,
you're
although
actually
that
saying
would be funny. No.
poor Titus, by the way. But I think that with of course technology growing, I mean, it's good that they have that technology, and hopefully, a some coaches have that technology. That's probably really really big in film
Mhm.
session. But I think with this particular series, I don't see the 76ers coming back and winning, three straight. I think this series could be over if not tonight. The next game, I think, is it.
It's Sunday.
Yeah, I think if it doesn't end tonight, it's over on Sunday.
I think it ends tonight.
The way they're playing, I agree.
Well, and it's not the fact that the way that they're playing, but they're doing something. The Celtics are defensively. They're doing something that's helping them out so much tonight. And you know what that
Hmm.
is?
What's that?
They're locking JJ Redick up. Their best shooter. They're locking him up.
Yeah, I definitely would rather Bellinelli take those off course fadeaway lean
Hmm.
there to the side, whatever it is that he's doing.
Like if it's
Fa-
Bellinelli, you can live with that. If it's Embiid, you can live with that too. But
I mean,
who else?
obviously they've
Who
been
else is really
watching.
a? But who else is really a threat as far as shooting on that team?
I mean, Covington has come a long way with his shooting.
We're,
Yeah, I
we're
think if
saying
they would have leave,
threats.
I think Covington is. I would say that Covington, if left open, probably could hit better than Bellinelli. I don't even know why Bellinelli's a starter right now. Honestly, I'm being honest with you. Yeah, I think if I had to say anything, I'm not sure why Markel Fultz isn't playing.
Hmm.
If he's still hurt or not, but I think he should have been out there.
I mean, but the last three games, Covington has tonight. He has two at halftime. He had three last game, and then 2 games ago he only had 1 point. So
I think that's on.
I'm just trying to see, like,
We'll see. Again, I mean, this is where it goes back to your original statement that sometimes you can't actually look at the stats.
hmm
You got to kind of look at the state. I mean, you got two guys who are running around chucking up threes no matter what,
yep.
and
Well,
you got Ben
and I'm not saying
Simmons.
that. I'm just saying like you're saying if he gets the ball wide open. So it's either a the sets that they're running isn't having the opportunities to let anyone else other than Bellinelli or Reddick or Embiid to shoot the ball,
Right, that's kind of how it is, based on
or
what I've seen.
B Covington isn't being aggressive to try to get the ball.
Well, you have to look at the process. I mean, that's just I mean, listen, if you have Ben Simmons who's running a point, and it's interesting for them to call him a point guard. I guess I would maybe point forward at this point. I think he
Oh,
does a great
and
job.
he's a point guard.
Yeah, I mean
He's a
he
point guard.
is he though? Just because
He's
he
a
brings
point
the
guard.
ball up.
He's a point guard. He handles the ball more than anyone else on the team.
Mm, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think that that's one of those iffy kind of things. I don't think he'll stay a point guard forever.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with that, especially if he
Yeah,
starts developing a 3 point shot.
I don't know if he has to develop a 2 point shot first.
He needs to develop a shot.
Yeah, anything. I saw him. I saw they. It's funny because they said that he talked to LeBron after their game 3 loss, and it just so happens that in game 4 he started doing those fadeaways. So I wonder if that was LeBron's advice to him was to try the fadeaway, which is terrible advice because that's how you get a swallowed.
That's how you become a flalo.
Of course. But yeah, I think this series is just about over. I agree with you. I think it's going to be tonight. Hopefully, the Celtics can get this game wrapped up, and then get some rest for the LeBronto Cavaliers.
Yeah,
Well,
because game one would be Sunday.
right. So the last series, the Rockets and the Jazz. Obviously, it was a good series. It was so good, I didn't even have to watch it. Um, I think I watched the first 3 games. I got really all I needed to really see. Um, I could tell that the Rockets were embarrassed game 2.
Yep.
And then game 3, they decided to pull down the little Jazz Note underwear and just spank their little bottoms. And then game 4 and game 5, they kind of just gave them some warm milk and put them to bed.
He
For Chris
just
Paul,
it was Chris Paul, and in that closeout game, Chris Paul scored 41 points. Chris Paul said, "I am not overrated."
not even just to close our game. I mean, game 4. I mean, he scored almost 30. His birthday.
Yep.
He was, you know, balling like I mean, he got promised some cake afterwards.
He did got promise of cake after
He
that game.
he did get cake actually. He did get cake, but I mean, he really came to play, and I mean, I think that it's good. A lot of people say that James Harden didn't show up, but I mean, James Harden still had 20 something points each game, and he still made his impacts. It just so
Well,
happens
and
that
that's because
Chris
they
Paul was
expect
hot.
him to like, do whatever. But like, and I was gonna say that. I'm so glad you said that. It's the fact that they played with the hot hand and they didn't
Hmm.
push. They didn't try to push the envelope to try to be on the state of storm. If someone has the hot hand for the Rockets, and this is where we talked about how they're balanced, the team is going to lean on that hot hand until he start missing. And then as soon as that happens, here comes the next person afterwards to get hot again.
I think that ultimately that could be the reason why they never made it, or Chris Paul, I should say, didn't make it to the
Oh,
Western
Chris
Conference
Paul
Finals.
scored 27 points on his birthday.
Yeah, he's balling. I mean, there's no question about it. I think that the reason why Chris Paul may have not made it, obviously he's playing, for the Clippers, but I think also is that he may have tried to do too much, you know. And in previous years, when the Rockets lost, James Harden was trying to do too much. You know, I mean, a lot of people go back to him and his no show later on in the playoffs against the Warriors last year, the year before last, and all other crap. But it's like after a while, you do get kind of tired, and you know fatigue kicks in.
Yep.
Um, you know, but of course that's no excuse because they're professionals. And I think in this situation, by the team leaning on Chris Paul, I expect that James Harden should be refreshed come the next series.
I think the next series is going to be the best series in the playoffs, hands
It has
down.
to be. It has to be.
Like this is on
And
some Cavaliers versus Warriors 3 last year.
yeah, we have to. We I think both teams are going to have to come out. And hopefully the matchups, which I believe are very, very good. I like the matchups that I see out there, and I like how athletic we are. I think you're going to see almost a mirror image of defense. Like everybody's going to switch. Everybody's going to, you know, shoot threes. It's going to be. I think the only two people on the court that can't shoot threes is JaVale McGee and Clint Capella.
Yep.
Could you imagine if Clint Capella develops a three over the offseason? Not,
Then he might become too expensive for the Rockets to keep him.
I think he's already going to be expensive. I don't know what we're going to do. Honestly, I'm hoping that Chris Paul takes a pay cut, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm glad we got
I
out of
could
that
see Chris
LeBron
Paul
talk.
taking a pay cut because I could tell that he's really enjoying embracing this heel role, playing alongside with the beard.
I do, I do know that, and I did read that, you know, obviously we could be in the running for a Paul George kind of player. Only thing
Eh,
about that is that I don't know. I'd rather have Paul George than LeBron because I know taking LeBron we would lose everybody.
no, he's
At
he's
least
going to Philadelphia.
that would be so
I'm
ridiculous.
telling
They
you, this
have
is
the
gonna
they
happen.
have the they have the money though.
This is gonna happen, and
Yeah.
it's upsetting. It makes me want to go into my bathroom and take a poop, but it's gonna happen. It's just reality.
I mean, I definitely agree. I think that him going there would complete their process, honestly, and then we wouldn't have to worry about the likes of Covington and his 2 points. They probably won't have to worry about JJ either or Bellinelli because
No, they'll keep JJ. They'll probably let Bellinelli go.
yeah, somebody will definitely be gone.
Well, it depends. It depends on whose contract is cheaper.
Oh, JJ makes $20 million.
Then it might be JJ.
Yeah, I mean he makes $20 million. It's very ridiculous,
Because
actually.
it's,
I
it's
was
it's
so
all
shocked.
about LeBron.
I was so shocked. But they still have the money, even with LeBron, even with JJ. Even though I think he only signed a 1 year deal, but I think even with JJ, they have enough money to make it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I look forward to this series. Hopefully, you know the Rockets and the Warriors both show up, and as someone told me earlier, they give us actual basketball.
I agree. I agree. We've been craving for it for so long. We had a conversation with Jay Rudy a few days ago talking about how he wasn't really interested in the NBA because of just the way it is right now.
Sure,
And this series is going to
sure.
be, worth the price of fair. Whether you're on, Comcast, Time Warner, Spectrum, whatever you want to call it, like it's going to be great to watch. I can't wait. I'm planning on watching every game.
Well, you know, I definitely had to troll Jay Rich. I mean, obviously, basketball wasn't for him. Obviously, he knew that the Tar Heels weren't going far in college basketball. And obviously, the Spurs weren't going far either.
Yes.
So that's why basketball wasn't as fun to him. And that's okay. It can't be, you know, they all can't be Duke in Houston.
I see what you did there.
But looks like we are at Endgame.
Yes, we are. It's time for us to deliver our final thoughts for the week, sir. What do you have?
So I have one final thought. I did read this earlier. HBO and NFL Films were honored with a Sports Emmy for outstanding serialized sports documentary, for the 5 episodes of Hard Knocks Training Camp with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Because it was
Uh,
incredible.
It was great. I hate the fact that we weren't good, but it was great. I wish we could do it back to back, but I don't think that's going to happen. I would have rather had it this year than last year, but it was really, really a good documentary.
Hmm.
Also, I'm not sure if you've ever watched or if you have Amazon like Prime where you can watch the videos, and I hope the people out there can. There's another documentary on Amazon Video called All In. I know this year they did the Cowboys. I haven't watched it yet, but the last two I've seen with the Rams and the Cardinals have been very good. And I would say that if a major network was to pick up this particular documentary, I could see it challenging Hard Knocks for the same Emmy.
I think that'd be entertaining to watch. I might have to check it out.
Yeah, the first year was the Cardinals. The second year was the Rams, and then this last year, I guess this year, which would be this year, they did the Cowboys. So it's going to be interesting. I'm gonna check it out and see, what Jerry Jones and these guys have to say. Um, I'm sure they're probably going to cover the Des Bryant release, hopefully,
Hmm.
um, and see where that goes. But that's my final thought, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So, my final thoughts is going to be on the FGC. First, want to give a big shout out to the Docs boy, Punk. He signed to a new team. He signed to Rick Fox's Echo Fox this past week. So big shout out to him. Congratulations. Punk, who we mentioned, was the runner-up for Street Fighter V at Evolution 2017.
And the Peyton Manning Award winner.
Yes, according to the doc, the Peyton Manning Award winner. But also, what happened this weekend, a Capcom Pro Tour event happened. Texas Showdown out here in Houston. I'm just gonna read off some of the winners for a couple of games. One in particular that definitely would surprise you. Former Evolution champion Christopher Gonzalez, aka Chris G, took the grand prize for Dragon Ball Fighter Z, defeating Hu Gang God in a pretty interesting set. Um, Chris G, who is one of the Marvel gods for Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, we do not talk about because it sucks.
Mm,
But of course, the marquee game, Street Fighter V, the arcade edition, we got to be careful, we got to say all that.
got
The
you.
winner of this one was Mena RD defeating Knuckle Dew out of Florida. And what makes this a grand final set so interesting is Mena RD, and I mentioned on a video for Ernesto, who I am subscribed with. If you don't know who he is, Ernesto Lopez. He does fighting game videos and some parodies as well too. Check him out on YouTube. He has some great content. Cheap plug. But I mentioned, and there was another video that the doc and I talked about, and in relation to like wrestling. We have the good guys, which everyone likes, and then we have the heels, which people don't really like, but at the same time, there's some respect there. Meta ID might be the heel for today's generation Street Fighter players.
And I like it. I think
Because
being a heel is the way to go.
and here's what happened. So, Knuckle reset the bracket, and he won. It was a tight set. So the crowd started chanting, "Knuckle do, Knuckle do." However, in the second set, MetRD defeated him 3-1, and after he finished winning, he got out of his seat, turned towards the crowd, and started to chant, "Knuckle do, knuckle do." It was hilarious. But it was the type of thing that gets people to go against him. But it's something that the FGC, especially in the Street Fighter community, has been missing for such a long time.
I think it's perfect, and I think it could, resurrect that, that passion for the FGC that, once was there. I know we talked about that a couple of weeks ago
Hmm.
with it not being as, you know, popular as it was prior.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's just mainly based off of personalities lacking now. People are just thinking too much about, and it's not a bad thing, but thinking so much about their brand that they forget about the love of the sport for, or the thrill of competition.
Right.
Like there's no fire anymore, and it turns a lot of people off who enjoys watching them play. A lot of their favorite competitors, but the
Maybe
so Men RD won first. Knuckle Doo was second. The top eight. Number three was your boy Smug, and my boy as well. What up, Smug? Problem X was number four. Chris Tatarian and Ricky Ortiz tied for fifth. Punk, who just newly signed with Echo Fox, was six, and Snake Eyes rounded it out with seven. Snake Eyes was the Zangief player, sir.
right.
Other notable people: Justin Wong tied for ninth. Your boy. Uh,
Justin.
Justin Wong, who's
Oh
still
my
playing.
God.
And it's just a thing. K Brad, who also recently signed with Ghost, he tied for 17th. Chris G, who we just got finished talking about, 17th. Let's see, who else? Who else? And Sherry Jennings was number 33. Oh well, you know what? I didn't speak about Sherry Jennings and E League and stuff like that, so never mind. But I mean, that was a lot of the notable people.
I mean, maybe what needs to happen in the FGC is that maybe a
Someone needs
little.
to someone needs to inject a little poison.
That's
Because I knew
exactly.
that exactly what you was about to say too.
Yes, I don't know. It's like you took that thought right out of my brain, but that's exactly what needs to happen. And, hopefully it's the injection of a little Professor John Gotti.
No, I think I'm not gonna do that, but I definitely appreciate that. I think I'm just gonna focus on getting gaming amongst friends, which will be starting this summer, ladies and gentlemen. That will be my big project. So, uh, as we are delegating a lot of duties away from uh, myself and getting Chris less things to do, I'll be focusing my attention on gaming amongst friends and trying to get some content out there.
There you go. One thing that I did forget, and I guess I could just throw it in here as another final thought, was that Paul George did have to undergo arthroscopic surgery to
Yes.
repair some damage in his left knee. Obviously, off season, he's at a point where he's a free agent. Obviously, there's going to be some big talks about him going other places, but there were also talks about him potentially going back to the Pacers, which would be ridiculous.
It's not as ridiculous as it seems.
It would actually be the biggest heist of all time.
So
You
he's
think
basic.
about it.
So the Pacers were basically Seth Rollins.
Yeah, it's a little bigger actually, because you think about it. They got the deal that got them Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, and then a year later, they sacrificed for a year, and then a year later, Paul George is going to come right back to play with Victor Oladipo and Sabonis. And honestly, when I look at it, they could have used Paul George versus the Cavs. They could have used him.
They could
I
have.
think that I think if anything, Paul George is going to go back east though, and I think Carmelo will as well.
I think Carmelo should retire.
Ooh, he won't. He
He
still
won't,
thinks he can play
but
there.
but he's gonna be that veteran that is just there.
he still thinks he could play 30 plus minutes and not come off the bench.
I'm sorry, I just saw a blatant walk, and I'm so glad the referees caught it.
Hey, sometimes these refs, but that looks like it sounds like in game, sir. Let's see what you got.
Well, tonight's track is from upcoming artist Alex Angelo from his new EP Never Know, and the title of the track is the same as the EP Never Know. Make sure you check him out. We put the links in the YouTube description of how you can reach out, check out his music. Definitely check him out. We had ourselves some great conversations, and I had a chance to preview it. I let the rest of the company listen to it as well too. They said, "Big man, you need to play this track tonight," and well, the final decision was made, and here it is for you tonight. But make sure you always catch Debate Amongst Friends every single Wednesday evening at 8:15, well, between 8:15 and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on right here on YouTube, live streamed. You can also catch us offline on both YouTube. We used to be on Twitch, but we're not doing that anymore. Google Play Music, iTunes, SoundCloud,
Really, all podcast
pretty
platforms.
much all podcast platforms. It's a lot of them, actually. And the fact that I can't recite them all just tell you how big Debate Amongst Friends is getting. And don't forget to also support the other shows under Business Amongst Friends. That includes Market Out Amongst Friends. Tomorrow, catch them live because they will be reviewing and showing their recaps, providing the grades for Backlash 2018 for WWE, as well as talking about some of the things that happened this week in the world of wrestling. And always catch Duke It Out this Sunday evening as they talk about politics and pop culture, as the Duke and the Duchess give you the reads and the dreams that you need.
Boom.
But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in with us. I am your moderator, the Professor John Gotti.
And this is Dr. Wednesday Night himself.
And we'll catch you again next time, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye, mwah, and good night. Bang!
Taste the ocean.
Let me tell you about a girl I used to know. She used to write me love letters, and I'm way thick season knows what she meant to me. Don't think she ever knows, but I hope she knows. I wouldn't be here without her. All the phone calls for hours. If I could go back, I would go back and I'd bring her some flowers. I wouldn't be here without her. If I could go back, I would go back. But I guess I'll never. No, I guess I'll never. No, and also to be. So typical of me. I guess I'll never. Now that I'm older, I don't have too many friends, 'cause I don't know which ones are real, and I don't wanna play pretend. If I could go back and rewrite the stories, and we would never end. I wouldn't be here without her. All the phone calls for hours. If I could go back, I would go back and bring her some flowers. I wouldn't be here without her. If I could go back, I would go back. But I guess I never. No, I guess I'll never. No. So typical of me. I guess I'll never. Never, never, no, never, no, never, no. So typical of me. I mean, never, no, never, 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 no, never, 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 no. So typical of me, but I hope she no, no, yes, I never, I hope she knows. I hope she knows. I hope she knows. But I guess I never know.